Hi, I'm Cassie Burton, and this is Curiosity Junkie. Today's guest is a licensed clinical social worker with a PhD in education. She helps folks overcome perfectionism, imposter syndrome, people pleasing, and anxiety so they can cultivate and sustain the healed and healthy life they deserve and desire. Please welcome Dr. Zoe Johnson. Hi, and welcome, Dr. Zoe Johnson.
Thank you. I am delighted to be here. Cassie, thank you so much for having me. It is a joy and a delight to get in this time and space with you in this way.
I'm so excited. I love talking to therapists. You kind of have a specialty in that you really work with the BIPOC queer groups. And I really want to talk about that because I think I don't think we realize I'm kind of coming to learn a lot about trauma. And those are groups that are really impacted by trauma, and maybe not specifically individually, but as a group.
Yeah, generationally. Yeah, absolutely. Historically, that stuff impacts us. The literature and the scholarship is clear when we look at trauma and the impact that it has on humans. And for me, I was really drawn to work with Black and brown and queer folks in particular, because we move through the world, a world that doesn't center us. Instead, it pushes us to the margins.
Yes.
And often kind of orients our very beings from a deficit model that normalizes whiteness.
Yes.
And calls us other. And so what does it mean then to center the very core of one's identity, the way that they see themselves, what's salient and important to them? I think it becomes really important, particularly in the context of the therapeutic setting and structure and alliance. And so for me, it just was a really natural, I identify as a Black woman. And I, you wouldn't know to look at me, but I'm a first generation American. So my parents immigrated to this country. And so I hold a lot of identities that are considered marginalized. And accordingly, it's important to me to bring my whole self to any space that I occupy. And I invite clients and communities that I have the opportunity to work with to also do the same. It becomes so important.
It does. And I'm finding the whole trauma aspect of life really fascinating. And it kind of speaks to the anxiety piece of it. We don't realize how those are connected. It's just anxiety is in a way a reaction to trauma trapped in our bodies, and it just gets that pathway in the brain, and that's the way we it's our go-to response. Anxiety, stress, anger, it depends. Everybody's is different.
And fear, and fear, which is so real, right? And so, we can pick up, not the newspaper anymore, because I don't know that people really do that, but we can click to any news feed. We can listen to whatever our desired kind of news source is, and we can see in the news that Black and brown folks aren't always safe. Queer folks are not always safe, right? And so it tracks that would translate into notions of anxiety and manifest in ways like that, because that's not a conclusion that is far gone. That's not something that folks aren't watching and looking and experiencing very real kind of cues and indicators and signs that says, I need to take pause, or I need to take care, or I have reason to be a little bit on guard in this situation. And so what does it mean that when that is a very present part of somebody's reality, how do we navigate that so that that can be addressed in ways that open up a pathway to joy and to acknowledge resilience and brilliance and, all of the other spectrums of emotion that we desire to experience more, fear and anxiety and those things.
Yes. Well, I want to talk a little bit about anxiety, but I love that you work kind of in the strength-based approach. I think it's fantastic. I am a big fan of the Clifton Strengths philosophy and really working from your strengths and not worrying about your weaknesses. Like those are weaknesses. They're not your go-to things. So why not focus on what you're really good at? Let's talk a little bit about that. Like how or why do you kind of go that way?
Well, I am a trained social worker. So my credentials, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And for social workers, the strength-based perspective is really core and central to our orientation and to our work. And so anybody that's in a MSW program around the country, that's in a BSW program around the country, they are going to have heard probably more than they even like about the strengths perspective. So for me, it's in my professional core identity, my professional DNA as a social worker, where we really are looking for what are those things that folks bring to bear. And we would insist that everyone has strengths,
Yes.
that everyone has capacity, that everyone has things in them that really help them to be able to navigate really difficult situations. We move through the world often in a deficit orientation or an orientation that pathologizes. And so to turn that on its head and to really highlight and amplify and elevate, these are the things that have gotten you through, even in those tough moments. These are the things that you are so skilled and so good at. How do we, shine a light on that and really embrace and also use strategic thinking and how we can bring those things to bear to kind of help with these other areas that may be a bit more challenging.
Yeah. How do you encourage someone to kind of identify their strengths? Because for a lot of us, we get in that I'm not good at this. We kind of stick to that and we forget that we really do have some really strong core strengths.
Right. So often that is helpful to engage with other folks, to help folks have an opportunity to have more than kind of the narrative that runs in their head, but to allow other folks to weigh in and share their observations. And so in particular, therapy can be such an important tool in that way. One of the things that I do in my very first meeting with clients is a really thorough initial assessment. And part of what that assessment does is gather some history and kind of all the things that you might expect. But I have a question in there that is, what are your strengths? What are the things that come to mind for you that you're good at? And then I have another way that I pose that in asking folks, what brings you joy? Because if we follow from the place of joy, often we will be able to connect to some strengths as well. So even if asking the question directly doesn't spark something in someone, often if you ask some other questions and probe a little bit, it can be very easy to see. It can even be very easy to see in just kind of regular discourse, right? And so, we're not accustomed to, like when we stop and chat with our neighbor, to say, you are really good at. That's typically not how those conversations go. We don't often tell our colleagues that, I really appreciate that you know how to close a meeting.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we don't say that. We don't say those things. And so sometimes even just connecting with trusted others that you have meaningful connection with to ask the question from your vantage point, what do you see as my strengths? I think we'd be surprised at what people would share if we ask that question more. Again, trusted others, not everybody. Yes. We don't have to, boundaries are important. Boundaries are a gate. Who do we want to let in, right? And so trusted others in posing that question that have meaningful connection with you and have seen you in action in all of your glory. I think we get some really valuable and useful information.
Yeah, I do think there is power in that. And I remember at work in like a supervisor position, someone saying, yeah, just ask some really close friends what they think your strength is. And I was like, I've never even thought about asking someone who knows me. Like if you had a word, what would the word be? What's the first word that comes to mind when you think of me? And it was amazing. I did quite a few friends, some that knew me really well and some that I kind of knew, like newer. And 75% said the same word. And I was just like, or a version of. And I was like,
there you go. There you go. Look at your strengths. Look at your
yeah.
strengths. You know, it really is a shame that in our cultural context, often we don't celebrate people until the end of their lives.
I know.
We don't give people their flowers. We don't say, this is how my interaction with you being in my life has impacted me positively, meaningfully. Those aren't conversations that we often have. But if we move through our lives and our experiences with intention and presence and curiosity, which is why I love you. Yes. And curiosity, then that opens up an entire doorway of understanding ourselves and others.
Yes. And it's such a powerful word. I wish people really would kind of look at the curiosity word, because it is about being open. To me, the word curiosity means I want to be open to learning and understanding from everyone and everything. Because I go back to the theory that we only know what we're taught by people who only know what they're taught by people who, so what we know is such a small, guarded little amount of knowledge that if we just kind of opened up to who's sitting across the table from us, across town, country, world. Yeah. I think it's amazing.
Well, and we have such opportunity in this day and age, right? To expand our networks. You know, Cassie, I think about how we're connected.
Yeah.
Like we've never met in person.
No.
We connected on the gram.
Yeah.
You know, shared mutual respect for role and content and those things. And then from that, you know, collaboration is born. And so, you know, being curious enough to put ourselves out there and ask questions and gather information and to be kind of comfortable knowing that we don't know it all, because we don't. Like, and the minute we think that we do, there's a problem. You know, I have a whole PhD, and what I realize is that there are a lot of things that I do not know. You know, it has made me wise in understanding complexity and in understanding my own limitations. And so that becomes really important. You know, what would that mean for the way that we are in community with each other and even our national discourse, if we all pause and realize that we don't know everything and that we might be able to be influenced.
Yes.
Or change our mind or take a different position, right? Like it's a game changer. Curiosity is a game changer.
It really is. And I love that you brought up we connected through the gram, because what first comes to my mind about what I think kind of drew me to you was you made a post about this is how we celebrate or something like that. And it was that you had 100 posts. It wasn't about how many people were following you. It was about, I made it to 100 posts. I'm here, I'm showing up every day. I'm going to celebrate that. And I was like, damn, I love this woman.
Thank you. But it's so true that like, there are a lot of things that we don't control, but I can control that. There are many things that we do. And so to celebrate what I can control and not what others do, I think, you know, the followers come when you're able to be congruent with who you are and your values and show up. So much of it is showing up. Yes. So I consider it an honor to be able to show up in space. Again, as my whole authentic self. And my hope in so doing is that other folks kind of see that as an invitation to show up more frequently as their full authentic self also.
Yes.
Because that's our gift to the world.
It really is. And it's not an easy thing to do. Show up authentically and vulnerable.
It is not. And particularly for women, particularly for folks that are Black and brown and queer and hold any identity that is considered kind of outside of mainstream. We get so many implicit and explicit messages about how we need to show up.
Yes.
Your hair should look this way. Like, make sure you're put together that way. Like, respectability is a real thing. Respectability politics is a real thing. And so what does it mean when we say, you know, like, this is me. This is me, and I'm going to be me, in the world, and to be so well received. So that's one of the things that also has been really exciting for me, is, you know, in the space of private practice, I don't answer to anybody but me.
Yes.
Right. And so I get to show up in a way that fully and completely reflects that. And it has been liberating beyond measure.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yes. I remember quitting my job and just doing my own thing. And it is so freeing. It's scary as hell, but it is so freeing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to
I
be
wish,
anything for anybody.
I wish liberation for everybody, whether it's in kind of the context of their labor, whether it's in the context of, you know, relationships, or you know, in any manifestation that should happen. Like, may we all be free.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
All be so free. Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you're doing and putting out and talking about. I do want to talk a little bit about people pleasing and anxiety, because I think those kind of go together. We have this anxiety that can be wrapped around making sure that, and especially as women, and a lot of times I always say, you know, I can only speak from the female perspective because I am female. So I can't speak for anybody else. I'm just saying that sometimes I find, and I think it's the middle child and the way I grew up, a little bit of chaos. It was that people pleasing was easy because it kept you like small, and you could just make sure other people were happy. But it also put you on like this hyper vigilant, let me make a read of the room 24/7.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk
Absolutely.
about how do we stop that?
Ooh, that's a big question. The short answer, therapy helps.
Oh my gosh.
It is helpful. It is a useful tool. There are many useful tools. But people pleasing can be a real challenge for a lot of folks. And again, because we get so many messages that are direct and indirect about what's acceptable and what's not. And we internalize those, whether or not we realize it. And so if you were to move through life and leave these notions uninterrogated, you'll naturally do this stuff. You'll naturally people please. You'll show up in that way. Because again, it really is embedded in our socialization in ways that, unless you stop and say, but wait a minute, I don't actually want to do that thing. Or if I don't kind of scan my body and for tension or for pain or for anything that is literally my body screaming like, this isn't it, I don't want to know, my mouth will still say, oh sure. right because we want to be and as humans need to feel a sense of belonging. But I would submit that sense of belonging exists for all of us, regardless of undermining who we really are or what we really want. We can still have belonging, but it feels like a gamble. So, you know, it's like a big risk in the same way that leaving your job would feel like a risk, right? Like a really big gamble. And so, you know, the way to kind of build the muscle is to start small and do it in small ways. And then you build up to kind of bigger ways. And so something small stakes, you know, someone invites you to a party that you don't really like them and you don't want to go.
Right.
right. So how do I get out of, or how am I just honest about my energy or my capacity or my desire or willingness to go do this thing? Right. And so I encourage folks to first and foremost pause. Don't say anything. Don't feel the need to immediately fill the space with a response. And people pleasing, buying yourself time becomes critical between the question and the answer. Yeah. And so if someone's inviting me to this party, oh, Zoe, we're having this thing, do you want to come? And I'm screaming like, absolutely not. I would say, oh, thank you for that invitation. That's not a commit or anything. And then I can take a pause. I'll get back to you. I'll text you later and let you know. And then I can formulate my thoughts or whatever I want to say. Or if I'm feeling in that moment that I'm ready to say it, I just say, oh, thanks so much. I'm not going to be able to make it, but I hope you have a good time. And next time I see you, let's connect about how it went.
Oh, that's good.
And so I've honored, like, thank you for desiring me to be part of this thing. I appreciate that. I'm wishing you well in it. I care enough to know how it went. I just don't want to be part of it.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we have a tendency to like make up elaborate stories or over explain why we can't show up.
Stop talking.
Say, I just
stop talking. Say less. Say less. We don't actually owe people an explanation at all.
Mm-mm.
No, thank you. It would suffice.
Yeah.
And I think so the more we talk, the more we kind of go in circles or dig or what. Yeah, just stop talking.
Yes. And that's kind of around boundaries, right? Like those are setting boundaries. And I think the biggest thing I've learned about boundaries is it's not like you're drawing a line in the sand and saying, I can't cross this and neither can you. It's creating these healthy spaces for the relationship that is important to you to be really healthy. And it's good stuff. It's not like, I think a lot of people think boundaries are like this bad thing. They're not. They're beautiful. They're really healthy. They can be scary. I'm not great at it, but I'm getting better. Like,
yeah, but you're absolutely right. They are intensely beautiful.
Yeah.
Because it lets people know this is the pathway to connect with me.
Mm.
This is the pathway to, if we move in this way, there is respect and care, and and that those things are important to me. It gives people a map of us.
That's good. Yeah.
It really does. It gives people a map of us. And so what do we want and need people to know about being in community or in relationship with us?
Yeah.
Like it gives them that opportunity to then respond to that invitation. I consider it an invitation.
Yeah. Well, I think this kind of goes in that boundaries thing too, is having respect for someone else's. And my daughter and I talk all the time. And sometimes, and both of us have done this. And when I found this little tool, we both went, oh my God, this is powerful, is asking the other person, because you go into, this is somebody you love, they love you, you have the just great communication, where you don't. You just start like,
yes. And so asking them, do you have the capacity for me to share right now, or for me to vent right now? Or is there another time we can connect?
Yes, that was powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to, these are issues of consent as well, right? Like it goes back to like, is this okay with you? I'm checking in and establishing a naturally occurring feedback loop where you can tell me like, yeah, this is good, this works for me, or no, this doesn't. And then we can go a different direction if it doesn't. So it's boundaries rolled up in great communication, rolled up in care and concern, rolled up in honoring self. Like it's all the things, it's goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think even communication is just so huge. Like I was a district manager, regional manager, worked in retail all my life until this 2020 thing. And I just said, that's it, I'm out. But communication, and it's not just at work, it's relationships, it's literally every aspect of our life. So when you can figure out how to ask someone or tell someone what you need, so it's okay to say, hey, I need to vent. You have the emotional space for that right now, and I just need to vent. I don't need any advice. I don't need, like, you can preface what you need to in those moments. And I think
it's beautiful. And we all need practice with that. One of the things that I do personally for self-care is I'm part of a women's group that is a group of folks that we have been gathering for years. And there is trust and respect that overflows in this group, right? And so, one of the the kind of naturally occurring kind of skill building things that happens from existing in a community that's constructed in that way is we do that very thing. Like, this is what I need. Like, so you've got to, you know, accept responsibility for yourself and claim time if you need time. So I had a really tough, we meet monthly. So I had a really tough month. And here's my like brief update. But after everyone shares their brief update, like I really need to claim time to unpack this thing that happened to me, or this thing that I'm thinking through and navigating. And so you've got, it calls for a level of accountability in doing that. And it really is the exercise of doing that, of communicating and conveying, articulating, this is what I need, and asking for that from a group of people, and having people say, yeah, sure. Like, and so it breeds more of that in spaces in my life outside of that. I've had practice at doing it. And so I always encourage folks to, where can you practice safely? And so the example that you shared about you and your daughter and checking it, like, that's because of the strength of that relationship. That, what a beautiful way then to practice saying that. And then you're able to say that with friends that maybe I'm not so close with, but like, I built the muscle. I can say that it's part of my normal vernacular.
Yes. And that's the thing. It becomes more habit. The more you say it, you're just comfortable saying it, and it doesn't feel like you're stepping on anyone, or you're going to hurt anybody's feelings. It's just a natural, beautiful, vulnerable. I think it's vulnerability too.
It is. It most definitely is.
In a good way.
In a good way. In a way that is the pathway to connection, right?
Yeah. Okay, I have to bring this up because I was looking on Instagram. This was one of the other things that I was just like, oh man, look at her go. You stepped back into dancing. Like, you had a thing for dancing, and I saw your tap shoes on there, and I was like, I love that you did that. That's a brave thing.
So I grew up dancing in my youth. From the time that I was, 3 years old,
all the
way through high school, I danced.
Wow.
So dance was part of my life. Like I'm classically trained in ballet, tap dancing. And then as I got a little bit older, jazz was into the mix as well. And so, it really is in me. And then we grow up. I always knew that I wouldn't be a professional dancer. Like, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't that great. Like, I was okay for my little studio, but I wasn't going to New York. Right. And
that was never a goal, right?
Right. I had other life goals and plans. So, you grow up, you're doing your things at work and family and the grand juggling act. And I missed it. I miss moving my body in that kind of way. I miss kind of group movement. I miss the loud music of a studio. I miss the trappings of it. And so I'm a person.
Play? Do you think? Is it a form of play?
It is a form of play. It's absolutely play. It's leisure. It's exercise. It's community. It's all the things. And so for me, like, I'm not one that will go to the gym. Like, they steady take my money every month. I should probably remedy that. But I'm not one that has crossed their threshold in months. But dance,
it's a January sign up and then never show up.
It's a mess. So, but dance, I love. Dance, I absolutely love. And so to put on tap shoes again, to twirl and move and shake and jump, like, it fills me with joy.
Yeah, I've just been seeing a lot of, I follow so many therapists and people who work with kids and that kind of thing. And they were talking about play and yes, it is important for children, but it's also, don't forget, you have an inner child. It's important for you as adults to engage in some sort of joy, play, playful. Yeah.
Because if we don't, like, ho-hum is like truly, like, we should be laughing, we should be smiling, we should be having joy-filled moments. That doesn't expire when we turn 18.
No. And I go, oh my gosh, we used to go dancing all the time and just like, And then when does that stop? Like, why does it stop? That's it. Stop it.
No, we don't have to stop. There's the lesson. We don't have to stop. Find a place near you that you can go and dance and twirl and play.
Absolutely. I love that. No, I just thought, how powerful is that, kind of reconnecting with, and I love that message that don't forget, like, you have a playful side and connect with that, whatever that is, or creative. If it's a creative outlet, do that too. Yeah.
Or created. I love that.
Yeah. What else did I see on your, okay, so we talked about play. One thing I did like on your website, you have kind of a quote. It says, "You are the expert of your life."
Mm-hmm.
I love that, because when we're talking about therapy and working with someone, or even going to the doctor, you know you best.
You know you.
Yeah.
You know you, and you have been moving through your lived experience forever.
Mm-hmm.
And the helping professionals that are supporting you in whatever season of life you're in are there to support you. And so, yes, I went to school for a long time. Yes, I know the theories. Yes, I know the interventions, all the things, but you know you.
Mm-hmm.
And the interventions are only good as the interventions are, if they work for you.
Right.
And so it becomes really important for folks to be centered in their own expertise, because that expertise is real and exists and should be respected and honored. And so I bring a deference to that in my practice and work with folks.
Yeah, I love seeing that, because I think a lot of times when we go to therapy, there's that fear, and the same thing with the doctor, that, this person's supposed to know better than me. Not always. Like, yes, they know stuff and they're going to be able to help you in ways that you can't do for yourself, but you also know who you are, how you show up, how you react. Like, those are the things that you have to kind of stay in tune with.
Absolutely. So I really make it my practice to check in with clients and to get their feedback on how is this experience going for you, or because it is so important to me that their expertise is honored, the expertise of their lived experience. And part of that is, let's do a little bit more of this, or let's do less of that, right? It's being responsive. And so, I make that a regular kind of part of what it means to work with me, so that folks know that that's more than a statement that you'll see on the website or hear in a first appointment. That's going to continue to show up in our work together. That's going to continue to be present in the therapeutic alliance between us and in the space that we occupy together.
I think that's beautiful. I love that, because it's really important to honor yourself in anything you do. Like, just be true to who you are. So let's talk about that. How would someone connect with you? Do you only work in a certain area? Like, I didn't research any of that.
These are great questions. I'm so glad you asked. So folks can find me on the gram. So I am on Instagram as Dr. Zoe Johnson, DRZOE, Johnson spelled the traditional way. And so that's a very easy way that folks can immediately connect. My website is also drzoejohnson.com. I'm consistent. So folks can find my private practice website at that location also. I am licensed in the state of Georgia. So if you are a Georgia resident and you're looking for a therapist, check me out. And if you don't reside in Georgia, I love you wherever you are. And you can follow me on the gram for just kind of general kind of tips, tricks, mental health stuff, but also kind of personality stuff. And then excitingly, next year, I am hard at work on some exciting offerings that I will be able to share with fellow clinicians. And so just kind of working on a project that will support folks in their own reawakening of honing their justice orientation, their critical consciousness, and their practice with clients. And so if you are a clinician that is working with folks day in or day out, or just a human that care about these things, stay tuned. And there is going to be more from Dr. Zoe Johnson in that realm in the new year.
I love it. I love it. Yes. Okay. So definitely jump on Instagram and follow Dr. Zoe because I love checking in with you and just seeing what you're up to. And you just always have like this wonderful energy. And that's like amazing.
Thank you, Cassie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me assure you that the admiration is mutual, and it has been such a treat to have opportunity to share time and space with you in this specific way.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on and to all of you out there. Thank you for tuning in, listening, watching. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you soon.